Hey, this is Lance with 20-Sided Knight, and today we're going over item damage in Starfinder. First, we're going to take a look at what causes item damage, and how and if they'll function after being broken or damaged. We'll also review hardness rules, then finally we'll be going over how to repair damaged and broken items. Before we go into all that, if you subscribe to be appreciated, as it helps the channel grow, and one day we'll be big enough boys to fight Sky Daddy. It's possible to ignore item damage rules altogether unless the situation specifically calls for it, but a few great reasons to add item damage into your game are to add something for the group's crafter to do to feel more useful, upkeeping gear, and remind them that their role is important. Additionally, if your group has become a little too munchkin-y due to having overpowered gear from an early GM mistake, well, this is a way out. Just be careful on this option and not being too heavy-handed, lest ye come off as an antagonistic GM. And finally, the risk of gear being damaged from sustained combat also adds a touch of realism to your game. The rules for item damage start with breaking objects on page 409 of the Starfinder core rulebook. Item damage can come from a variety of sources, such as taking item damage during combat or while in hostile environments, such as extreme heat or acid rain. Some special circumstances that specifically attack equipment, such as the Sunder Combats maneuver on page 246 of the Starfinder core rulebook, can also cause damage to your gear. Be sure to keep in mind that objects are immune to non-lethal damage, so if you're trying to blast through a wall with a pulsecaster pistol, that otherwise stunning charge isn't going to be enough to deal damage. Objects are also immune to critical hits, meaning they won't take extra critical hit effects like arc in the example of our pulsecaster pistol, nor do they deal the double damage dice in the event of what would otherwise be a successful crit. However, the regular damage still affects the object. The extra damage of a critical hit could be roleplayed as an attack hitting a vital organ on a creature, such as a knife puncturing the lung. Since I'd hope your doors don't regularly have lungs or arteries, there are no extra squishy bits for our attack to cause greater harm. To make up for this, some objects are vulnerable against certain types of damage, like wood being susceptible to fire. If an object is vulnerable to a particular type of damage, it would take double damage on successful hits of that type, and said damage might ignore the item's hardness. Hardness being something we'll go into a little later in this video. On the other hand, some weapons are ineffective against certain objects, potentially dealing no damage, such as bludgeoning damage against tough metals. This is usually the case of lower level melee weapons, but still, be sure to keep an eye out for this. If you're not looking to shoot your way through, you may also attempt to break objects using strength checks, such as Kool-Aid Manning through a living room, or channeling your inner Kyle to burst through some unsuspecting drywall. The DC for this depends on the material of the structure, its thickness, and its condition. From a 16 to break through a simple wooden door, to a mighty 35 to bend nanocarbon rods. The specifics for the most common examples can be found behind your GM screen or in the core rulebook. Objects gain bonuses to their break DC depending on their size. They're also weakened if the object is broken, something we'll go into a little bit later, thus reducing the required DC by 2. Area of effect attacks generally deal damage to unattended objects normally, but don't damage held items or those in use unless otherwise stated in the effect's description. An object's fortitude, reflex, and will save is their item level, or in some cases, caster level. Any other effects aside from damage are usually ignored unless specified by the effect. For targeting objects not being worn or carried, these unattended objects start with a base AC of 10 plus their dex mod if applicable. Then that AC is modified by its size, larger objects having a lower armor class, and smaller objects having a higher bonus. This can be imagined as the difference between hitting the broadside of a barn is easier than shooting at some oil lanterns inside. For inanimate objects, like walls and barrels, it not only has a -5 from having a 0 modifier, it also takes a -2 penalty to its armor class. Additionally, if someone targeting an inanimate object takes the full action to line up their shots, the attack automatically hits with the melee weapon, and it gets a +5 in the case of ranged weapons for its attack roll. Pretty much every item has hit points of their own. The amount is dependent on a few factors, primarily the item's level and what it's meant for. Most equipment designed to take a beating, such as armor and weapons, have a number of hit points equal to 15 plus 3 times its item level. Other equipment, like say a basic communicator or a pair of reading glasses, have hit points equal to 5 plus their item level. Additionally, any item at 15th level or above receives an extra 30 hit points, probably being made from tougher stuff like premium materials and being made with higher craftsmanship. Hardness on page 409 is a special kind of damage reduction afforded to objects. Each time an object is damaged, reduce that damage by its hardness before determining how many hit points an object would lose. In most situations, an object meant for the adventuring life, such as weapons and armor, have a hardness of 5 plus 2 times its item level. And, similar to hit points, any other equipment like your Galaxy 10 that you just paid off that fell once is now ruined, or something like rope, has a hardness of 5 plus its item level. As you can tell by now, item damage can be a lot to consider and keep track of during combat. Do you think this will slow down your game, or have you found a good workaround for it? Let us know in the comments below to help out your fellow gamers, and us. Something to keep in mind with force fields that may be a little bit of a tangent is that would take damage first before it affects the item, as long as that force field was activated beforehand. Since a force field is projected outwards around you, that would take damage before even hardness would, to give some extra defense to your armor or whatever's lying beneath. Items take on the broken condition, as explained on page 273 of the Starfinder core rulebook, when they've been dealt more than half of their total hit points. The effects of the broken condition vary depending on the item, but a couple of examples are a broken weapon has its attacks made with a -2 penalty to attack and damage rolls, and don't deal additional critical hit effects, but still do double damage, as mentioned in our previous example of, say, a knife puncturing a lung. This detriment can be due to something like damaged optics or a bent barrel, and the broken suit of armor grants the wearer only half of its armor class bonus, rounded down, and doubles its armor check penalty. Damaged items can be repaired with the engineering or mysticism skills, depending on if it's magical or a technological item. Hybrid items can be repaired with either skill. We made a video on crafting that covers item repair you can check out on the card after the video, and links in the description. Broken items usually only sell for about half the item's normal sale price, and the cost to have an item repaired, if your group can't or won't undertake the task themselves, is about 10% of the item's original purchase price. Depending on how you want to pace your combat, it might be best for GMs to have these detriments take place after combat, so your players don't need to worry about changing their modifiers on the fly, unless an item is sundered, as this stat reduction was likely the reason for the player or NPC using the combat maneuver. But that's on a table by the table basis. Would you calculate the effects immediately, or would you rather wait until the dust settles? That covers item damage in Starfinder, and the broken condition, and how its items can affect your players and GMs at the table. We like making these videos a whole lot, so if there's any rules that you're curious about, let us know in the comments below, and we'll make a video about that too. Thanks again for watching 20 Sided Night, and bye for now.